So Kant part 2, page 34. So we lost the whole summary I did in the first video, but in any case, we are trying to remember two parts of our being, instinct and reason. Instinct is interested in happiness, reason is interested in the good. We don't know yet what the good sounds like, what reason sounds like, and we're going to find out today. So page 34, here philosophy. Are you there? Put your hand in the screen. Okay. Here philosophy is seen in fact to be put in a precarious position, which should be firm, even though there is neither in heaven nor on earth anything upon which it depends or is based. In other words, Kant's philosophy is not based on heaven, it's not based on the earth. So what does this mean? Let's stop a little bit on that. What does it mean when Kant refers to heaven? What does he mean by the heavens? Anybody know?
Can you repeat the question?
So Kant says, my philosophy is not based either on heaven or on earth. Very good, Lensman, right? Heaven is God. So Kant is saying, I'm not pulling this from scripture. I'm not pulling this from some God-given authority, right? But
religion.
neither, so religion, right? Or neither am I pulling this from the earth. What does he mean by the earth?
Theories of people, regular people.
Okay, exactly, right? So this is, he's also saying what the state has decided, the laws, the rules of the state, this is not moral philosophy. We talked about this before, right? For Kant, there's a difference between man-made laws, which guide a society's happiness, and morality. And sometimes it's important, according to Kant, sometimes morality goes against the man-made laws. And we've seen this even in our country, right? We had a number of laws that were alienating to a whole chunk of the population, right? So we had to do some boycotts and disobedience of these laws in order to uphold morality, right? So Kant would be for civil disobedience, right? He believes morality is distinct from religion, it's distinct from the state. Why? Because morality is within, right? We all carry it within ourselves. We all know deep down what is right and what is wrong. So, but sometimes we get mixed up, right? We saw that last time. We don't know which voice is instinct, which voice is reason. And sometimes we saw that instinct sounds like reason, but it's still instinct, right? When we saw the example of the bar and you don't get up to talk to the person, right? This cute girl or cute guy, because you're afraid that their boyfriend is gonna beat you up. That's instinct, but you're still doing something that reason would be agreeing. You're not going up, right? So you can see how it can become a bit murky. So today we have to figure out what does reason really sound like and what is the good. All right, so for this, we'll go to page 35. And I want you to go to the second paragraph. In the middle of the second paragraph, there is the capital H, hence. Do you see it? Put your hand in the screen if you're there. Okay, thank you. There's a couple of you. Very good. So I'm going to read from there. So Kant is going to go now and he's going to continue with the distinction, instinct, reason, but he's going to go deeper. So let's read together. Hence, there arises the distinction between subjective ends, which rest on incentives, and objective ends, which depend on motives valid for every rational being. Okay, let's translate this sentence. So he's saying there are two paths that we can take. The path of subjective ends, which are based on motives, and the path of objective ends, which are based on motives valid for every rational beings. Okay. Sorry, subjective ends, I need to redo that. Subjective ends are based on incentives for me. I'm doing it again. Objective ends are based on motives for every rational beings. Okay, this is, so please take into account just the last two. Subjective ends, which are based on incentives for me. Objective ends, which are based on motives, valid for every rational being. Okay, so let's try and figure out what he means by all this. So what is an end? An end is a goal. What does it mean when you have a subjective goal? You're about to make a decision, but deep down, you have a subjective goal. What does it mean? Who are you thinking about when you have a subjective goal in mind? Or, yes, very good, wrestler, right? Yourself. So subjective ends is you're thinking, the goal is you, right? What am I going to get out of this, right? That's what Kant means by incentives, right? What am I going to get out of this? So which voice is speaking when you're thinking, what am I going to get out of this? Instinct or reason? Instinct, very good, Leon, right? Okay, so subjective ends, this is instinct. You're thinking, what's in it for me? You're thinking in terms of incentives for yourself, right? Objective ends now is the path of reason. And here, let's see at what you are thinking about. Kant says you're thinking about motives valid for every rational being. In other words, you're not thinking of your own incentives, you're thinking about rational beings. That's what you have in mind when you're following the path of objective ends, which is the path of reason, right? Your ends are beyond yourself, not subjective, objective. Your ends are broader than just you. They include every rational beings. Okay, so I could sum, so translation, right? There are two paths, right? So the first one is interested in what's in it for me. This is incentives. This is the subjective path, right? Second path, interested in every rational being beyond myself, right? Not just me. And this is the objective path, right? It's broader, it's bigger than just me. Okay, so now we have to go a little deeper because remember, we saw last time, it's not enough to just think about other people's happiness, right? Morality is not just only about thinking about other people because remember, I give you the example of the drug dealer comes to your best friend, drug dealer, comes to you and says, hey, you know, I need you to drive us to the bank, right? We're gonna rob it. And then you're just a car, right? And so now you're thinking about them. But this doesn't make it moral necessarily, right? So it's not just about thinking about other people. It's about thinking about other people as rational beings. This is the key. Let me write it down in the chat. So it's not just about thinking about other people, right? It's about thinking about others as rational beings. So this is the key, right? In other words, you're not just thinking about them and their happiness, you're thinking about them as a rational being. And this thought will guide your actions in a moral direction. So we need to explore then what it means to think of someone as a rational being, because that's what Kant is saying. As soon as I start thinking of someone as a rational being, I will know exactly what to do in terms of the moral decision. Am I clear so far? Put your hands in the screen if I'm clear. Everybody on with me? Okay, so now we have to analyze, what does it mean, rational being? We have a definition in the last paragraph. Let's go there. Last paragraph of page 35, we have a definition of rational being. Are you there? Now I say that man. Put your hand in the screen. Only one person? Okay, good. All right, so I'm gonna read. We have a definition. Now I say that man, and in general, every rational being, he's about to define, exists, here's the key, underline this, as an end in himself and not merely as a means to be arbitrarily used by this or that will. Okay, so he's saying, so I'll put in the chat, definition of a rational being, an end in themselves, not a means to be used. Okay, what in the world does this mean? What does it mean to be an end and not a means to be used? How are you treating that person if you're treating them as a rational being? What are you not doing based on this passage? Anybody know? Anybody able to decipher? Right, now that was my question. Let me write it again. What does it mean to treat someone as a rational being based on this definition? What do you never do with them? What does it mean to treat someone as an end and not as a means? Grady, go ahead.
So I think it means like don't try to use them while you're on the way to something or on the progress to doing or completing something. Only reach out to someone when you're at that point where you're ready to I don't know, finish, or you're all the way in, or you've done everything you need to do. And um yeah, I don't know, maybe for a little pickup, or um just like when just don't use them while you're in season, like when you're in the motion of getting where you need to get to.
Okay, you got it. Very good. There's a couple of things in the chat. Use Prashad. Very good. Never use them for what you want. I see another hand. Medina, would you like to add?
Professor, where was that in the text?
Last paragraph on page 35. Now I say that man exists as an end in himself and not merely as a means to be used. Medina, you had a question, comment?
I was gonna say, like, it's like you don't only take advantage of your friends, so you don't only call them when you need them. It's more like not a beneficial, but you're always making sure that they're okay, always being there as a true friend, not just being there whenever you need them.
Excellent. You guys got it, right? So what Kant is saying, when you think of someone as a rational being, you're basically telling yourself they're not just there for me. They're not just something I can use for my own benefit. They're not just an object, right? Like the bottle or like the book that I can just use and then discard. There's something else, right? And so this is what it means to follow the voice of reason, right? Reason will always basically stand up for human beings as rational beings. Let me say that again. Reason is always going to, your reason, right, will always stand up for rational beings. It will always tell you, right, wait, right? Are you about to use this person? Right? This is what reason sounds like. In other words, reason is always going to be interested in what Kant calls the dignity of human beings, right? Let me write this down, right? Reason is always interested in the dignity of human beings. I'll get you guys' questions in a second. Let me just finish this thought, right? And mind you, not their happiness, right? This is not what reason is interested in. Their dignity. What makes them worthy of respect? Let's look at what Kant says about respect and dignity. Go to page 36, and then I'll get some of your questions. Top of page 36, on the other hand. Are you all there? On the other hand. Put your hand on the screen. Okay. On the other hand, he continues, rational beings are called persons, right? So reason is interested in the personhood, in the dignity, inasmuch as their nature already marks them out as an end in themselves, something not to be used. We know this. Hence, here's the key. There is imposed thereby a limit on all arbitrary use of such beings, which are thus objects of respect. So reason interferes always as a limit, right? Naturally, we want to use everything around us. Naturally, we want to have and possess and master everything. But as soon as it comes to human beings, your reason will stand in between and say, wait, not them. You can do this with your book. You can do this with your phone. You can do this with your, car. You cannot do this. This is a human being. They are worthy of respect. You need to step back. That is what the voice of reason sounds like. The voice of reason will always stand up for the dignity of human beings, right? Let me say that again. Always stand up for the dignity or personhood of human beings. It will always, right, remind you that they are worthy of respect. Okay. So that's what, now notice, right? Let me emphasize this again. Reason is not interested in the happiness of these guys, right? It doesn't matter if you're hurting their feelings by not driving them to the bank, right? It doesn't matter that you've lost their friendship now forever. What matters is that the dignity of the human being was preserved. And how do we preserve the dignity? By abstaining from using them. As soon as you feel like using someone and you step back, you are respecting them at that moment at that moment you're following the voice of your reason. Okay, now let's get a couple questions. Grady and then Hassan. Grady? Grady? Okay. Hassan?
Yeah, the first thing is just a clarification. The second one is an actual question on Kant. The first one is the subjective and objective ends. This is the four duties that he speaks on page 36 to 37, correct?
No, if it's a duty, it's reason, right? So that's
Okay, so I
different.
got
That's always the voice of reason. And by the way, if you look at those four duties, they're always guided by this idea of the dignity of a human being, right?
okay.
Any duty will have this notion, am I preserving, protecting the dignity of me or of the other? Let me add this, right? This idea of protecting the dignity of human beings is not just protecting the dignity of others. We also have a responsibility to protect our dignity, to not let ourselves be used, right? So it's not about happiness at all. It's about dignity, right? Am I about to use someone? If I don't, right, use them, I am respecting them. Am I about to let someone use me? This is also following the dictates of reason, right? And I refuse to be used. At that moment, you're obeying the voice of your own reason, right? Hassan, makes sense?
Yeah, I guess like that idea of your necessary duty to yourself probably answers my second one. My second question about Kant is because I mean I might just be general trust issues with people, but I don't if we follow these rules from Kant to respect others and their dignity, it never secures the ability for others to do that the same to you.
Yeah, and be careful, right? We're not following Kant's rules, number one. We're following your own voice, right? All that Kant is doing is describing something which is occurring within us, right? He's simply analyzing these voices and these impulses, right? So we're not obeying Kant, we're obeying ourselves. And yes, it doesn't matter what other people do. That's their problem with their voice of reason, right? It matters, are you listening to your own higher self? Are you faithful to your own higher self? That's all that you should be worried about when it comes to morality. Now, when it comes to ethics or when it comes to society, yes, we need to worry about what other people do and create laws and external laws and so forth. And this is also necessary. But when it comes to morality, it's a private affair between you and your own reason, right? According to Kant. Does that answer your question? Hassan?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I've been doing. Like in the chat in the group we were talking about how I guess we would just use this and how we personally would apply it to certain situations, especially when it comes to philosophy of love.
Right, and for Kant, this is essence repercussions because for him, morality is a private affair, meaning that the state perhaps should not interfere with morality. Right, when we're debating right now abortion, right, with the Supreme Court justice and so forth, and there's the question, right, can the state interfere in the private morality, right, private dialogue of a woman with the voice of her reason? So this is one of the debates, right, that we can insert content, certainly, right? Very good. Grady, you still have your hand up. Are you still wanting to talk?
Oh no, I didn't have any questions, but that's interesting that like we're saying that now, because in my group we were like talking about you know, how basic morality and how in the book Kant tied morality with being universal law, and almost how like you have to like follow it, and it's like just like you said, kind of like off instinct, like to be moral and be right. I was just like in personal terms saying like, is it really a universal law though? You know, because everyone doesn't follow moral code. Just like with the abortion law, you know, the people that actually do want um a voice in someone else's abortion, like and I was confused. I was confused at that at first, but like Hamrad explained it to me and kind of broke it down to me more. And like let me see, like at the end of the day, there's still the moral thought, like it's still your moral thought. You know,
Yeah,
you may not go with the moral, but still have the thought.
Yeah, and when it comes to the morality of the issue, I think we all agree. Nobody agrees that abortion is the best thing that you ever did in your life, right? I think morally as a country we agree. Where we disagree is practically, right? People will say, well, if I have the child and I can't afford it, what should I do? And I can't do it. And other people will say, well, you know, that's your business. You're on your own, right? So I think as a country, we actually agree that abortion is not the best idea in the world, right? But practically we know, I think what the left is saying is that if we make it illegal, then, you know, people will get dangerous abortions and they will die. And other people are saying, well, we still have to, right? This doesn't matter, right? We still have to make it into law. But morally speaking, I think we agree as a country, but it's practically speaking, we need to actually have a more serious dialogue, in my view, as to how we can, in a way, make things more easy. And I always say to my friends and my family, I say, if we're going to be pro-life, we have to be pro-life all the way. Not just pro-life at conception. We have to be pro-life when the baby is born, how to take care of the baby. Are you helping as a state, as a community? Are you helping raising that child? Or are you just pro-life just for the moment of conception and then the hell with that woman, she can deal with it on her own, right? So that would be my voice in the debate would be, yeah, let's be pro-life, but let's be pro-life all the way. Let's give people the resources to be able not only to have the child, but raise the child, right? But morally speaking, I do think there is a consensus in the country. It's just practically we haven't worked out the issues, the practical issues that arise if we ban abortion or if we, right? How do we help the woman raise the child if we ban abortion? How do we prevent them from having these dangerous abortions performed on them? Does that make sense, Grady? I don't know why I went on this tangent.
That makes sense.
I'm regretting it already. Sorry, I had to say that. It's my responsibility as a woman to open my mouth about this topic. Okay, so you can see, right, how Kant, in a way, a lot of what he's saying can be applied even today in some of the debates we have, right? Okay, but this is the main thing, right? What we're learning is that the voice of reason is that voice inside of us. This is not old Kant talking, right? It's the voice inside of us that is always going to protest when we're about to use someone, including allowing ourselves to be used. And so it is in this way, make sure you write this down, that reason places a limit on our happiness, right? Reason is not this old, you know, grumpy thing trying to prevent you from being happy all the time. You can be happy as much as possible. You can go watch that movie, eat that burger, go out with your friends. You can have fun. Reason's not going to say a word, right? Reason will only start to speak when your happiness starts to encroach on the dignity of another human being. That's when reason will start to say something. Okay, let me say that again. So reason is not generally against happiness, right? Reason will only protest, right, once your happiness starts to encroach or interfere with someone else's dignity, right? Let me write this down. Can't write else. Okay, right? So in other words, Kant is, your reason is perfectly fine with you going out and eating that burger unless you have a sense of animals as rational beings, right? That's another story. But you can go eat that burger, watch that movie, hang out with your friends. But as soon as you start to have an idea, oh, let me use this person to my benefit, then reason will interfere with your happiness and say, maybe this is not a good idea, right? Leon, you have a question.
Yeah, I just had a quick question because I remember you were talking about the example. You talking about like your friend wanted you to drive the car to rob the bank. I'm just a little bit confused on how this concept that you're explaining, or Kant's concept, relates. Like, are you talking about from your perspective or your friend's perspective? Because I'm just a little bit like, I'm a little like, it's not clicking right now.
Clarify. Let me clarify. So
Yeah,
some of
please,
you, we thought last time that reason is about helping others, making other people happy. We thought, right? Last time we thought, okay, reason is not about my own happiness. It's about being selfless for other people. That's what we thought last time, right? So then I said, but wait,
right.
There's a problem because sometimes being nice to people and making them happy entails doing something immoral, right? Like robbing a bank. So we had to go deeper, and today, now we're a little closer. We realized that being moral, listening to reason, is not about their happiness. It's about protecting the dignity either of your friend or of yourself. So even sometimes that will make them unhappy, right? If you tell your friend, well, I'm not going to let you use me like this, right? I don't feel comfortable with this, so I'm not going to do it. You're not making them happy, but you're protecting your dignity, right? So you're still doing the moral thing, even though you're not making them happy. Does that make sense, Liam?
So like you're not really protecting them, you're sort of like just protecting yourself in a way, right?
Yeah,
Like
you
in that
can protect.
situation, since you're not helping
Yes,
them, but you're helping yourself
yes.
in a way by not helping them.
Yeah, and remember, it's not about making yourself happy. It's about protecting your dignity. It's different, right? Many times we will sacrifice our happiness for others, and that's good. But what Kant is saying, what we should never sacrifice is our dignity when we help others. You can sacrifice your happiness, but don't sacrifice your dignity. That's the issue
Okay,
here.
so nothing to do with being selfish and not helping others, but more of just like for humanity, for just doing the right thing,
Yeah,
for
it's about,
dignity.
it's strictly about dignity. It's not about happiness at all, right? So it's not about being
Okay.
selfless and unselfish. It's about, you know, is the dignity of someone in danger? And that is the only time that reason will begin to speak. Otherwise, you can talk about happiness, how to best be happy. You can do that with instinct. So
Okay,
to
thank you.
clarify now, to help you go even deeper, let's go back to the example that we had, which was the cheating example, where we couldn't figure out yet what was the moral thing to do. This will clarify. So remember, here was the story. You had a big exam. Tomorrow was the day. No time to, you know, to study. I mean, you were studying, but your friend comes in, whole family died. She can't concentrate. She wants to cheat on you. Half of you said you would let them, right? What would the voice of reason really be telling you at this moment? Based on everything we know so far. Medina, go ahead.
The voice of reason will tell you, don't do it, don't let her cheat off of you, because it's not like the moral thing to do.
Why?
Because cheating is wrong. It's not.
Why? Where's the dignity? Remember, the voice of reason is only concerned with somebody's dignity. Whose dignity is in danger in the cheating example?
Yours.
Very good. You're about to let yourself be used, right? By your friend, even though you're doing it willingly and you love your friend, still she's going to be using you. And at that moment, you're losing a little bit of your dignity, right? And so the voice of reason, and all of us should be feeling this actually, right? All of us should be feeling a tiny bit uncomfortable about the idea. Of course, we want to help her, we want to, but there's some little part in us which wishes things could happen differently, right? Am I correct that all of us, in a way, if you had another option, you would take the other option, correct? Like if you were presented with a choice, let her cheat or help her study, and you had infinite time to help her study, most likely you would choose the second, right? Unless you're lazy and you want to have the easy way. But all of us would feel a little tiny bit of discomfort in the sense that, okay, someone is going to use me tomorrow, right? And that is where your voice of reason is coming and saying, oh, be careful, right? Don't. So you can see how Kant, it's not about happiness at all. Both of you are miserable now. Your friend is miserable. You're miserable because you're making them miserable. You might lose the friendship. And yet for the voice of reason, right? This was the right thing to do in terms of morality. It's not the right thing to do in terms of happiness, for sure. Okay, Grady and Medina. I see you have your hands up.
Now I was just going to say, in that instance, right? How much do we really follow morality, right? And I want you to like follow me on this because, if you really put it in the context, right? And you, like you said, the example, someone's, close grandmother, their mother, their father, someone dies. This is a close friend you have, right? Now, reason's always going to tell you at somewhat like, don't do it, no, maybe not. But doesn't that come from the person or who you are or how you feel about it? Like, there's a certain median and a certain level to how much reasoning plays a part of it. Like, if you're someone who does, you know, like who cheats on exams and stuff and does things like that, like you that voice of reasoning won't really ache you as much as someone who may be an honest stud all the time and does everything it's supposed to do. So isn't
Yeah,
it more of who you are and how do you feel about the situation and how your voice of reasoning is taken, not just, you know, the general voice of reasoning that you feel, because to some certain situations you can't put into like, this is what's supposed to happen, this is what's supposed to happen because this is right. It's not always right just because of, you know, the norm.
very good. This is, let me give you an example that will help your case. This is the typical example. The Nazis come to your door and they ask you, are you hiding any Jews? You're hiding some Jews. Do you lie? Obviously you lie, right? So you can see how there's a problem here, because now you're lying, which is you're taking the Nazis, you're disrespecting them, right? But you're protecting a life. So it seems like Kant's theory doesn't work in some cases, but let me be his advocate and say that it still does work. What Kant is saying is that yes, sometimes practically we have to disobey the voice of reason, right? Sometimes if we want to protect a life, or if we're fighting a war and we have to kill to protect ourselves, right? We still have to kill. But, says Kant, it doesn't make it any less morally wrong. It's justified, but it's still wrong. And this is the part that's difficult. Let me write it down, right? It's justified to lie or kill sometimes, right? But it's still morally wrong. In other words, you are still infracting upon a moral law. But I would agree that there are moments where you have to bend it. And it's justified sometimes to lie, and it's justified sometimes to kill, but it still is in a way wrong. Let me give you an example from the context of war, right? Soldiers kill, they're hired to kill, they have to kill. It's honorable to kill in the context of war, right? They're protecting their country, their loved ones, right? But watch how they come home, right? They come home, and most of the soldiers, right, they are suffering from what happened. They're suffering from going against, exactly, PTSD, from going against something in themselves. So even though they were justified in killing, part of them is still suffering from that killing, and that's the moral part of them, right? So does that make sense? So yes, there are moments when we have to make an executive decision and go against reason for the sake of something greater, but you're still wounding a part of yourself when you do that, right? Does that make sense, Grady?
I have a question. I'm
wait,
sorry.
let me just let me just make sure. Okay, you said yes. Okay, Hassan, go ahead.
When it comes to that aspect of morality, though, when it comes to if it's justified, I think it still could be morally wrong, right? Morally right as well. In some situations, let's say a person murders two people and he runs out, and you have a gun and you're able to shoot him, and you don't because it's morally wrong. Well, you think it is morally wrong, and then he runs off and kills two other people.
Yeah.
Then I think it probably was morally right for you to shoot him, especially like, yeah.
So I would argue for Kant, right? I would argue it was partly, I mean, it was right on that level that he protected those people, but it was still wrong on the level that he killed that person. You see what I mean? So you cannot absolve somebody from what they did to protect others. You see what I mean? It's still a problem that they had to kill that person. You see what I mean? Otherwise you lose the sense of the dignity of the person they killed, right? You can't take away the problem. It's a problem. They had to do it. Yes, it was morally right on the level of protecting other lives and so forth, but on the level of killing the person, we cannot take away the fact that it is a problem. Something went deeply wrong in killing that person, even though it was justified. That's why I use the word justified versus the morally right. Does that make sense, Hassan?
Yeah, but yeah,
Grady, help us out, Grady.
Basically, what you're saying is, um, no matter how right or wrong the situation is in general, in terms of morality, if something is going wrong, if it's something at any connotation negative, and someone is losing any piece of their dignity, it is automatically it's morally wrong at some point. It could be right in terms of what you're doing, but if someone's losing any piece of dignity, it is morally wrong.
Yeah, something is still deeply wrong there, right? Even though you saved 100 lives by killing that person, still there is a problem that this particular individual lost their life and their dignity in the process, right? So Kant is saying the human life is so precious, right? That even one person, even they're a bad person, right? The fact that you had to kill them is still a problem, because even though they're a terrible person, they're still a human being. And that dimension is sacred for Kant. So even though they deserve to die, even though they're Hitler, right? Still they're a human being, and that part of them, which is human, is worthy of respect, is worthy of protection, and it's deeply problematic when that part is taken away from them. Does that make sense? Hassan, helps a little bit?
Yeah, I'm always interested in that aspect of that. There's a lot of people who are dead who probably deserve life, and a lot of people who are alive who, in some opinion, might deserve death, but you know, who are you to make that decision?
Exactly, right? A human being, no matter how evil they are, right? Maybe they deserve it, but still for Kant, the fact that they're human is infinitely sacred, and we have no authority over that. Anytime you take that away, you're committing a crime against humanity, right? In a way, even if you're protecting people, protecting yourself, still we have no right to take away someone's humanity. We can punish them, we can lock them up, we can, you know, do all kinds of things, but taking their life, using them, right, stripping them of their dignity, this is an infraction against morality, right, against humanity. Grady, your hand is still up. Is that normal?
Accident.
No? Okay, very good. Okay, any other questions about this text? Okay, good. All right, very difficult, right? Kant is not easy to both to read and to swallow, right? What do you mean? It sounds like philosophy politics, Grady.
It sounds like a debate. Well, of course, there's philosophers. Well, we're all philosophers, in some way, even if we're not like famous and professional philosophers. As long as you think about something as a philosopher, and say like I'm going against like what he's saying, like just like a Republican goes against a Democrat in debate, like there's people like Hassan who isn't completely on his side of how he's thinking, and maybe he's the one that's going against the grain of what people regularly think, is what I mean. So like it kind of sounds like a lot like politics to me.
Yes. Although Kant would say that we all agree deep down that killing is wrong. That's where we're doing morality, right? Politics is the pragmatics. We look at the consequences, right? We look at the effect on people, on happiness, right? But morally speaking, Kant is right, I believe, when he says that we all agree. We all agree that killing either a baby or a human being is a problem, right? Where we disagree is in terms of happiness. What is the best thing to do in terms of a society's happiness? It's in terms of instinct where we disagree, I believe, right? But morally speaking, I think Kant is right when he says this is something that is universal. We all agree that killing is wrong. We disagree now is the circumstances and other things come into play, right? So in that sense, I would disagree with you, Grady, that philosophy is not like politics, at least moral philosophy. Does that make sense, Grady?
I get what you're saying.
Okay, good. All right, let's call it a day. I'm going to talk briefly to the 6 students. I'm going to stop the